Sir, Danny.
I'm going to give you a little advice. There's a force in the universe that makes things happen. And all you have to do is get in touch with it. Stop thinking. Let things happen. And be the ball.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a barn burner. I've got a theory that I was sitting talking with my usual 3 times a week coffee clutch club of old high school friends, and we got talking about a topic called Keep Your Eye on the Ball. And it has to do with little DJT. So we were sitting around this morning talking, and a lot of things hit. So I'm going to try and cover a lot of them. I had to make some notes, so you'll forgive me if I have to glance at my notes every once in a while because there was just so much that we talked about. So what's all the bluster with the little orange Antichrist about him wanting to play fuck around and find out with Greenland and Panama and renaming the Gulf of Mexico? Just that topic alone right there, renaming the Gulf of Mexico, is such narcissism. But when you look deep down into it, are there any real possibilities that he could do it? I mean, there are navigational charts for both sea and air. There are national treaties with multiple countries, and there are national conventions with multiple countries that specifically reference the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah. If there is a possibility, and I'm not going to downplay that, there's always a possibility of everything. You try hard enough, you should be able to succeed at something if it's halfway decently legitimate. So yeah, there's a possibility, but are we doing this tomorrow? No, that's going to be for years down the road, most likely long after he's out of office. So what's all the bluster? There's nothing to gain from irritating Panama and the Gulf of Mexico. Now let's throw in, he was a big proponent against TikTok so long ago during 2017, 2018. He railed up against them big time. And I'm not sure whether that had anything to do with he saw them as competition for his Truth Social network or not. But there's a little bit of a possibility there. But Jesus, the way his mind changes from minute to minute, the way the wind blows and gets him going on something else, there's no telling why he did it back then. But let's talk about what's going on right now. The ban that he originally talked about back in those years has come around and is due this month, the day before his inauguration, if I remember the dates right. So all of a sudden, he wants the Supreme Court to hold back on that. He's calling up his old buddies, his old cronies up there on the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Roberts and Justice Thomas and Justice Alito and Justice Kavanaugh. He wants them all to go, oh, wait a minute, put a break on this. Why? That's part of playing the game of keep your eye on the ball, and that's just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going here. I'm going to keep asking you about these things. And his suggestion about Greenland and Panama invading them with military force, he says he can't rule that out. According to this morning's broadcast, he can't rule that out. That actually sent the Pentagon into a special closed-door meeting today that I don't think the results of that meeting are finished yet, or will they ever be made public. The president-elect has called for the military use, possibly, and can't rule it out that he would use it, of force against allies. Again, keep your eye on the ball, okay? Because there's something afoot here. By the way, Greenland, a sovereign territory of Denmark. Who's Denmark? What is their history with us? What have they done with us, for us, and alongside of us? Well, in the original NATO treaty in 1949, they were the original signers, an original member of the NATO organization. And there's one other little problem with playing fuck around and find out with another NATO organization. It's called Article 5 of the NATO codes. And just for the sake of being accurate on it, I'm going to read what that is. That the Article 5 resolution for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization states, the parties agree that an armed attack against one or more of them in Europe or North America shall be considered an attack against them all, quote unquote. So is our president-elect suggesting that we go to war only to turn NATO on us? I would like to think that our military is battle-ready and battle-hardened, but are they willing to take that as a lawful order from the president to attack an ally that has, when they put their joint forces together, could equal or come out on the better side of a military operation? Are we going to actually fight with our friends? Keep your eye on the ball, because all of this is not the ball. Is not the ball. And one of the things he's been talking about a lot lately, and we've discussed it before, and you probably hate the word by now, but it's tariffs. You know, he keeps saying he wants to put tariffs on, and one day it's a tariff against the whole country, and then, according to the Washington Post, he made a statement to somebody there that he was kind of walking that back, and he was talking about maybe just tariffs on certain items coming in from certain countries. And within hours, his people put out a press release that that was a false statement by the Washington Post. Well, I don't know that the Washington Post goes around making flagrant statements like that that would be so high profile for them to be called out within an hour. Okay? I'm thinking that someone's not telling us the truth. And I'm kind of like, weighing the reputation of the Washington Post's editorial team versus the Orange Antichrist. And I think you all know who I agree with there. Okay? No, they've come back and said, no, there's tariffs. Well, does he really think that we're the only supplier of any goods at all or services at all to Panama, to Greenland, to Mexico? No. And his idea of a tariff, it rails right up against his idea of wanting them to spend more money with us because he's afraid of China getting involved. So I think I said it in another podcast, people like Mexico and China, Mexico and Panama, I got to be sitting there going, well, the Orange Antichrist wants to slap us upside the head and try and teach us a lesson in our own sovereign country. What would you do if someone come into your house and said that to you? I know what I'd do. They wouldn't like it either. But my backup thought on that is, well, maybe I should open up my avenues with China. Maybe I should open up my foreign trade with China. Maybe I might want to look at that new financial organization that rivals the American dollar called BRICS. They now own 46% of the global market in the economy. 46%. That leaves us a 4% advantage. And with people like China and Iran and Russia being some of their top holders, there's some influence there. Let's not kid ourselves. We can't battle everybody at the same time. I think there was a country called Germany that tried, if you look up history, they tried battling on the Eastern Front and on the Western Front. Yeah, their leader committed suicide over that stupid act, and Russia, the United States, and Great Britain divided up Europe after World War II. Yeah, that didn't work. But so why is he doing all this? There's not a chance that he can succeed on any one of the points I've just talked to you about. So I keep telling you to keep your eye on the ball. And this morning's coffee clutch, we're all sitting there, and out come the pads and the paper, and we started thinking about how much money was involved in that and everything else like that, what it would cost. And the Orange Antichrist isn't known for wanting to spend money. He wants somebody to give him money. And that's when the idea was born about what we're about to talk about. The Orange Antichrist is a transactional guy. And when I mean transactional, if he doesn't get something out of it, he's not involved. He doesn't want to be there. And in regards to getting something transactionally, it's always the same thing. It's always the almighty dollar. I honestly think that he has a little man's attitude, a Napoleonic attitude about himself in regards to people like the real billionaires of the world. With the chief sheikh in the Arab Emirates, the guy that's been accused of cutting up the reporter Khashoggi, the people like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg, and others. There's a guy from Shark Tank, and I'm trying to remember his name. I'll think about it because it's something that's going to come up in the podcast here today. So keep your eye on the ball. Money is everything to him. Well, let's pull up the visitor's log for the beach house down in Florida. So recent visits include Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, the entire group of oil executives, and I forget the name of their organization. They met in May of 2024, and I'm sure you've heard of the reports that he blatantly, while being filmed, knowing he was being videotaped, made a statement to the oil executives at this meeting that $1 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion would buy them some regulatory relief that they're looking for in regards to pollution, air atmosphere, water atmosphere, ground atmosphere, drilling, which, by the way, President Biden just took a swipe at all that and really knocked off a lot of the East Coast, Pacific Coast, and the Gulf of Mexico, which will take years to get that turned around for no drilling, no oil exploration. It will take years to change that order back. But I digress. And then there's this little-known player. And quite honestly, I'd never heard about him until one of the guys mentioned him. And I'm looking at some data on him right now. Hussein Sajwani. And he's from the Arab Emirates. And he's a rich guy. He's also a business partner of Trump Enterprises. And he financed the Arab Emirates golf course that has Trump's name on it, although they have their own league. Yeah, it's just funny. It's competing with the PGA, but somehow Donald got his name on a golf course over there. I wonder how that worked out. I wonder what went into that. I wonder if it had anything to do with his son-in-law's $2 billion bonus that came after he stepped out of office. But I digress. We're talking about Hussein Sajwani. Hussein wants approvals to come into the United States and build $20 billion worth of data centers for AI computing. Well, I just happen to have inside knowledge on that because that's the field I was in before I retired. And the company I worked for owned several of those major data centers. And unless he's going to build something brand new that's going to have its own electrical source, because as we've all heard, AI generates a massive amount of electrical energy, or use, I should say, not energy, but it produces a massive amount of electrical use. Here in upstate New York, a startup firm that actually worked in the building that I was in bought an entire old salt mining plant off of one of the Finger Lakes in the local area to be able to convert it to an electrical generating station, and they needed the water from one of the Finger Lakes to help cool their operation. Oh my God. Imagine how much energy they're producing. Okay? But I digress. Hussein here, he wants to build $20 billion worth of data centers. And he happens to be a long-term friend of the president-elect, who he's already doing business with under the name of a company called Damac. And Damac Properties has built luxury hotels that, guess whose name is on the front of them in gold? And he's built a golf course that has, guess whose name on it in gold? Remember, keep your eye on the ball here. Funny, I mean, I'm familiar with data centers, so a funny little cartoon is popping up in the head about the front of a data center that has a gold Trump logo on it. Please, please, God forbid, you know? But I digress. Let's go back to some of the people we've been talking about here. Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, you know, the originator of Amazon, and he was a genius when he built it. He took Amazon from being a brick and mortar store selling books to a global distribution center. He doesn't sell a goddamn thing. He owns warehouse space so that you can put your products in there, and he gets a cut of all that. The logistics centers was an idea born out of UPS's original need to be able to ship products faster, and so they would let some of their better users of their UPS flight services and truck services store things in their warehouse. That's where the original warehousing idea came from. And Jeff Bezos was a bright enough man that he capitalized on that. He saw that coming before UPS even knew what they had. And to the point where I live in a small podunk town in upstate New York, and we have 3 major Amazon warehouses. And just recently this year, an Amazon distribution center opened up for our local airport. And if you've not ever seen a warehouse distribution center, it's like a game of chutes and ladders. Imagine all 100 trucks back up to a building, unload all their stuff, and it all goes up in conveyor belts to the top of a building, and then it all drops off into metal chutes and slides with lasers, reading the labels, sorting them back out to the different distribution docks. And this building, by the way, probably has 100 docks in it. And it sorts them all out, puts them all back down, they package it and turn it around and send it back out within 4 hours. Okay? That's what I've got in my little podunk town. They're employing, they're right out next to one of our major colleges, and they're employing kids and part-time workers from the Kodak facility next door and to keep their operation running. But Jeff Bezos, I digress, has been visiting Mar-a-Lago lately, and there is no love loss at all, or at least there wasn't, with Jeff Bezos and Donald Trump. Jeff Bezos was completely outspoken about Trump and could afford to. I mean, he could buy 17 Donalds tomorrow and put them all to work in Amazon. That's how rich he is, okay? And his little butt crawled down to Mar-a-Lago and kissed the ring. And as he kissed the ring, he slipped a $1 million contribution into the Trump inaugural committee's funds. Yeah, Trump gets money from the government, but there are certain things like the after inauguration party and the food and the entertainment. So there are legitimate reasons, but the man who venomously railed against Trump during his previous 4 years is kissing the ring and slipping the check under the throne for him. What's he got to get for it? Oh, that's right. Jeff Bezos owns an aerospace thing called Blue Origin, who this weekend, Friday, is going to be launching one of their test launches for the United States government to prove that they can compete alongside, you ready for this? Elon Boy's little SpaceX program. He's going to go into competition with Elon. In all seriousness, right now between NASA, their launches, and SpaceX, which is an amazing organization, be even better if Musk wasn't associated with it, and Blue Origin coming in at third as another opportunity. And we do need that opportunity. SpaceX was grounded for, I think it was about a month. No flights allowed, grounded by the FAA and by the NASA group that helps fund them and guide them for their last failure when, what they called a failure was one of their Falcon 9 rockets, which is one of their smallest ones, the ones that land on the boat out at sea. It tipped over after it landed. That's, reminiscent of, one of the early launch tests and stuff like that. But it was one out of like the last dozen launches. So I'm not quite sure why they got grounded, but they did. And Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin would help. Friday, they will be launching and I suspect that most of you will want to watch it. They will be launching a test with NASA, and they will have government exclusive equipment on it that's their eyes only. Let's put it that way. I don't know any other better way to say it. It's obviously government secret stuff that's going up, and they are going to entrust it to their first launch. So there's that. And then Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg has lied to Congress openly, like a child getting caught with his hand in the candy jar and still denying that he's there. Mr. Zuckerberg has gone to the point of changing Facebook's name, turning it into a company called Meta because they have such poor reputation and publicity. Well, he just made it even worse. Mark Zuckerberg announced this week that Facebook, which would then mean also Instagram, because Meta owns both, has decided that they're going to stop their fact-checking service. Yeah, in other words, political speech and fact-checking go hand in hand, but they're going to do away with fact-checking. They're going to let it be a community-based responsibility, and they're bringing back open political speech. So, geez, I wonder what that's doing for them. Well, Zuckerberg paid a little crawl down to the beach house and kissed the ring, and he too slipped a check for $1 million underneath the throne while he was there. Now you see the transactional means of Donald Trump. Now you see what I mean by keep your eye on the ball. Because the ball isn't Panama. It isn't Greenland. It isn't the Gulf of America. It isn't worried about China. It isn't tariffs. It isn't anything that he keeps throwing out in the news cycle. It's one of those, hey, look over here because I don't want you to see what's going on over here. It's a game of smoke and mirrors. So again, I tell you, keep your eye on the ball. Because the Orange Antichrist is yanking in donations by the millions. And we haven't even talked about newest deal that dwarfs everything that I've talked to you about in spades. $40 million. That's $40 million to Melania Trump for the exclusive rights to show her new autobiography. They don't get a licensing deal in it. They don't own it. They only get to broadcast it for a limited amount of time. $40 million. I believe it was Chris Rock was the only other person that got a deal even close to that one. Where do you think that $40 million is going? Do you think Melania's putting that in her bank account? Please, don't make me look at you funny. So, when you hear and see the headlines and the news organizations that are being bought out, CNN, Fox, MSNBC. MSNBC was one of my go-tos. I have actually taken them out of my system. I won't watch anything they have to say or listen to anything they have to say. If you're looking for references, by the way, I use NPR, I use English-speaking Al Jazeera, and I use the BBC. Those are three of my go-to starts, and from there I work my way into some deeper resources. So when you hear that he wants to invade Panama or Greenland, or he wants to change the name of the Gulf, or whatever else it is, the bullshit that he's running on you all, and on me up until about today, my new theory is that it's keep your eye on the ball. Because the ball equals cash, and the Orange Antichrist is a transactional guy who only deals in cash. Enough said? I think it is. Well, hey, look, I'm going to call it here. That's been quite a rant. I don't normally run on like this. I apologize for this being so long, but I thought the facts were important, and I did want to get them out to you. Either way, I appreciate my new subscribers greatly. you guys are really making me feel amazing that I'm able to grow this channel, because the only reason I'm out here is because I don't like the way democracy is going right now. I want to keep the fight up. I'm a little guy, but I'm still going to be bashing away, and I ask you to bash away too. And one of the ways you can bash away is, hit the subscribe button. Support my channel. You don't have to. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. Just hit the subscribe channel and come on back. Make comments. I'll write back to you. I got a guy that sent me 7 questions the other day. I've answered 4 of them already, and I got 3 more I want to do after I get done with this podcast. But thank you for your involvement. Please subscribe. And at that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you yet again. Good night.